Hello, good evening.
Good evening. How are we doing tonight, mate?
Doing good. It's the end of the week. It's a different vibe at the end of the week, isn't it,
It
during this?
is, I have to say, very cheeky wine tonight. So.
Yes, yes. As I said before going live, I very nearly had a gin and tonic, but
Mm.
just gone for the tea and the G&T instead. So
So your code quality is going to be way higher than mine is tonight.
no. There are studies, right, where you have a certain amount of alcohol or beverage of your choice, of course, and you get more efficient apparently until there's a big drop. So
It's
that's
the
the
three
game.
unit problem, isn't it? I think isn't that right? What they call it?
Is that actually? Yeah. Oh, there we
I
go.
think so. Yeah. I'm going to bring that light up. What's happening in my camera now? That's there you go. It's done it
Yes, you
again.
suddenly went in the sun or something.
Went very orange. Yeah. Try that.
Oh, good. So, trying to refresh my memory. 2 weeks ago since we last were on, and
Yeah.
I think we
got broken stuff.
Yeah, we really did, didn't we? And it was from the prior time as well. So,
Yep.
I'm even wondering, is that something we want to focus on right now, or do we maybe want to divert for a little bit and come back to that?
Might be. I think it's a tough challenge. I know one of the things we talked about was setting up the kind of standardized development environment.
Yes, we could try that
I think would be very useful. So there is a slight added complication is that I've had to move all of the tenant where my Azure stuff was stored.
Indeed.
So other stuff will probably now be broken, although everything's deployed all right. So we're in a good place to start with. Yeah, everything. Everything deployed. So that was
wow. This just proves how good OpenID Connect is and being able to use it with actions.
And
right?
you know the infrastructure of code work we did and the pipeline
yeah,
work we
exactly.
did, all the action stuff we did, it paid dividends in that we could move to an entirely different environment and different subscription
and tenant as well.
And tenant, with apart from a connection change like the OIDC connection change stuff. That was it. That was the only thing we needed to change. Everything else worked. I will put a slight caveat on it. The only other thing I had to change was the storage account name and the prefix on all the resources.
Okay.
Because the storage account needs to be a globally unique name.
Oh, and it still exists in the old one, does it?
And because I got soft delete on the old subscription for storage accounts, it hadn't gone. So,
gotcha. Huh. Yeah. Interesting though. You know, these are all good things to talk through, right? So, something that, you know, if we're doing maybe more of a almost a DevOps kind of code space is kind of what I'm thinking, but working more on the GitHub side, there could be some things we could go back and explore on the security side of things as well, potentially. I've been in some training this week and met some of my colleagues across Europe, and been really interesting actually, just learning some little tips and tricks on things that you might need to configure, things you might need to go and activate, and we can maybe talk through some of those as well. Could be kind of interesting if we're just sticking in the GitHub side rather than the upside. So yeah, tell you what, let me share my screen. I'll jump over here. There we go. We'll get rid of Inception. And I guess first off, we want to jump over to to ToolUp Tuesday. So I guess for the context for everyone, we were talking last time about the challenges that we've got of spinning up the environment, because I think I've rebuilt my machine since we originally started the series here. I think, Matt, you've done the same, or you've got different Windows subsystem for Linux and like Windows and other things set up as well.
That's the big gotcha for me. Is I've got multiple WSL Linux variants running, and I can never remember what's installed on any of them. And actually, it just so happens that the repo is now opened on the Windows part, so I'm running on PowerShell, which means I don't have any of those things installed. So we're in a bit of a mess.
Yeah,
and I think we need some sort of standardization.
Gotcha. So then let's explore Codespaces. So TLDR for anyone listening in, Codespaces is your on-demand development environment. So whereas you've had before this kind of big green button where you can go and hit local and clone your repository to your local machine, of course, then you need to make sure you've got your IDE set up, you've got all of your frameworks, your dependencies, blah, blah, blah. You can just come in here, click this green code space button, and away you go. But obviously, the challenge is how do you make sure your code space is configured as you need it to be? We already had something configured 8 months ago. Wow.
I checked. And it's also worth pointing out that the stuff we're going to show tonight isn't just a Codespaces thing.
True. Remote containers would work as well. Yep.
Yeah, there's a really nice architecture to the way that VS Code works and the way it splits up kind of the UI bits and the server bits. And the server bits is where all your terminal runs, and it's where your file system is, and all that kind of. There's some slight abstractions on there as well. And then the UI is where some of your extensions run, and where your IntelliCode and all that kind of stuff, and Copilot will sit and run in that front end bit. But actually, by default, if you open up VS Code, you've got both of those bits in one executable typically. It might have multiple processes there, but generally that's the way to think about it. But you can actually split them up. So you can run your server in a container. You can run your server on a Linux machine over SSH. You can run your server in WSL. That's how the WSL connection works, is it's running in a different part of Windows. And then there's a connection back and forth to your client piece. And then you can also replace the client piece, of which one of them is Codespaces.
Indeed. Now, I don't know if you spotted as you were talking there, I did have a look through both files, and we didn't actually do anything in either. They are just comments and placeholders. So
I know, but in fairness, you did give us somewhere for us to go and look to try and find.
I did. That was good of past me. And in fact, actually, it was my base template that gave us that. So
nice.
There we go. I thought ahead. Clearly, Past Chris did well for once. Good job, Past Chris. Let's jump across. Yeah. So here we go. So there is a repository, and as you were rightly saying there, Matt, that it's based off this dev container concept. So there are a ton of different examples here.
Including a Dapr one, I see.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, exactly. A Dapr.net. So we can go ahead and just get going with this and try this out. So maybe let's explore it first. Just try and understand what it's doing before we bring it in.
Yeah.
So let's first look at the dev container JSON. Always a good one to start with. So here we go. We've got a Dapr with C# community is what it's calling it. It's using a Docker Compose file, interestingly, rather than a Docker file.
Yeah, does that mean it's bringing in multiple containers?
Potentially. I mean, we could take a look at it in a sec and see what it's doing there.
No, it's actually mounting additional volumes by the looks of it.
So it's bringing in a few extensions, the Dapr extension, Docker extension, C#, all makes sense. And then what they do is they uninstall all aspects of Dapr and then re-init by the looks of it, just to make sure it's a fresh install, I guess, once it's created. We jump across to the Docker Compose. Let's see what's going on here. So it actually builds from the Docker file, interestingly. Okay. And then they've got their endpoints as running on 5000.
Yeah.
Type of dev container and true. They've got volume for the local Docker socket to the container, so it can run the Docker in Docker kind of thing, I guess.
Yeah. And then it's got some Dapr networking on there as well. It looks like it's got a dedicated Dapr network at the bottom.
Gotcha.
Or it has a named network on there. I'm not quite sure how that works. Oh no, it does actually define a named network. Yep, there we go. So it's got a network there for.
I'm just looking in the actual Docker file. Just looks like starting off as a typical .NET container image there. There's also a Node version there for some reason. I guess as a dependency for the Azure CLI, I suppose.
Yeah.
Docker access in container, and then install new packages, set up non-root user, etc., etc. Okay, so
we've got the Azure CLI, right? We've got the Azure CLI. Brilliant. Yep.
Yeah, indeed, which is good. Obviously, we're going to be working with Azure as our state store, etc. So that's a nice thing to have in there.
Yeah.
What's this library script sound? Let's go and take a look at that in a sec. Then it's going and doing some updates, installing dependencies, installing the Dapr CLI there as well. Sorry, installing Dapr, I should say.
Yeah.
Adding Dapr to the path then as well, and establishing the entry point. Configuring non-root access to the Docker socket. Script will also execute command as needed. Okay. Makes some sense. What's in these library scripts? I think that was the.
So the only thing I can see that's missing from that Docker file is that we need to install Go, which then leads to another interesting question about whether or not this is one of the downsides of mono repo versus independent repos.
I think so. Because at least currently, and I don't know if there are any plans for this, but when you create your code space on main, if you configure and create your code space, I don't believe. Oh no, you can specify a dev container config. Interesting.
Oh, okay. But you'd want, so one of the problems we're going to run into is that we need to be able to debug all of our services at the same time. We need to be able to write them together.
One problem at a time.
Yeah. So I mean, ultimately what it means is that then if we stick with this repo, that repo, the dev container has to have both .NET, in that case Node from that image, and Go on there as well.
Yes.
But I'm assuming Go is a relatively simple install.
Oh, indeed. I would expect so as well.
That would steal that from the Go dev container, I would hope.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. So then let's literally just do a copy paste here. So dev container JSON.
Do you know, just stop a minute. Did you know, if you go back to GitHub, if you click the copy link on that GitHub page, it copies it raw anyway? Go right.
Nice. So let me do that for doc file. Copy. Nice, good tip. So used to so long going between the two.
Yeah. It's breaking that muscle memory, isn't it, at some point?
It is. It is. Even though you use things day in, day out, you always, as you say, build up that muscle memory, don't you? Oh. YAML. Library stash scripts.
What were those scripts doing?
So library scripts.
What's Moby?
Moby is the container engine.
Oh, okay. Yes, I did know that. Yes.
I think where there was a little while ago, wasn't there, where people started preferring to use Moby over Docker.
Yeah.
There we go. But, from a Docker file and that perspective for anyone listening in, they're interchangeable. So I think there are limited scenarios where you might see something where there's a not good interchange, but in general, I think it was okay.
It was the point at which Kubernetes went to containerd as its engine, wasn't it? I think
that was it. That was it indeed. Right. Initial container. Let's just, and that's our initial version up. And of course, I'll need to...
Different screen for that one.
Well, difficult when you have one screen these days. I'm living in a brave world of one screen.
Who's the random LinkedIn user that said Chris and Matt? I can't see a name to them.
Oh,
you might have to put your name in there.
Anyway, sorry.
So I was looking at the comments, the chat. We've got a hey from LinkedIn.
Ah.
But it's just listed as LinkedIn user on my screen, so I have no idea who it is.
It is.
So,
Let
hey,
me...
whoever you are.
Yes, hey, LinkedIn user. Let me actually load LinkedIn up and see who said, hey. It's Mert. Hey, Mert.
Hi, Mert.
There we go. Right, let me bring this back up. And jump back over here. And now, in dev container, we have stuff. So, first things first, let's go and check that we can actually create a code space this time.
Yeah. Nice. Quite exciting.
Obviously, want to make sure it doesn't fail. And then we can maybe start adding Go and other bits as well. Of course, the other thing that we won't have in this environment, when we think of the Dapr side of things, is the configuration for the bindings, etc.
The components, you mean?
Components, yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think for local development, I think we're going to need to start committing some stuff in, which means doing some stuff with secrets. Which, I don't know, I've not done that before. That sounds like fun. So if I open that up now and do the same thing.
There we go, it's installing the Dapr CLI there.
Should probably have waited until you'd finished, really, and would have cached the image then, I guess.
Container built. There we go. So it should connect any minute for us. So we'll have .NET, we'll have Dapr.
Yep.
Let me zoom in a bit. Go. Just to prove it, if I type Dapr in that command line, there we go. Dapr CLI is there, nice.
And just do the same with .NET, just to make sure.
Yeah, just get rid of the pop-ups. There we go. Oh, Sharp's installing. And it's still running the post create steps there. It's running that Dapr uninstall command that we saw a bit earlier. So we're just running a little too quickly there. There we go. Perfect. So let's try again. .NET version. Yeah.
We got version what, 3.1 is that?
Yeah, I think that's because just in the dev container, that's what we specified as an argument somewhere.
Okay.
We can
probably got that
deal. Yep. Let's see. So it's in the Docker file. Yeah, exactly. It's in the Docker file. So what, a 6.0 or something, would you say?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, let me bump that. Bump that to 6.0. Okay, we can rebuild that container. There we go. Image found, container built. Really? That quickly?
Is that done? That seems unlikely.
Yeah, I feel like maybe it didn't quite detect the change or something. Because it was a base image, wasn't it, that it was working on? There we go, see? It looks like it's actually doing it again there. Yeah, I think it got ahead of itself there, actually. Okay, so we'll get .NET 6 on that. The majority, what was it that was in .NET? It was the
There's two of
them, wasn't it? Yeah.
Two of them in.
Two out of the three. It's a majority, actually.
My GitHub. So I can open up the Codespaces.
Then we've got the Azure CLI, so we can go and log in, do what we need there. I think it is just Golang, isn't it, actually?
Yeah, I think that's the only bit we need.
So I'm just curious, actually, now if we do take a look at the Go example that they have.
I'm willing to bet it's, yeah, so we're going to need to do some tweaking.
So doc file, args, okay. So they've got some additional settings. Pass in some runtime arguments as well.
I mean, it might be we just, what's the instructions for installing Go? It's not that complicated. We might just want to just add another run statement to our existing image.
Yeah, because they're using a specific base there, actually. What is the base that we were using? Yeah, we're using a specific .NET base. Okay. Right. Yeah, so we probably will want to go and install Go explicitly there, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's try .NET version again. There we go, 6.0.401. And this is the beauty, right? Is, you know, in the time that it took us to have a discussion about Go while we're waiting for that to build, like, we've got an entirely new development with a brand new version of .NET and all those other tools reproducible again. Like, to the point earlier around having to move tenants and everything, etc. This is like that declarative development environment for us. Very nice.
So it looks like there's an apt install Golang Go.
Okay.
Which might just be the easiest way to do it.
Did you just go on the Go?
Yeah, I just did a search for install Golang.
I guess it's something like downloading the latest. Did you say there's an apt-get for that?
Apparently, hang on, your screen is really tiny. So go install.
Official docs seem to point towards the.
Oh. I mean, it wasn't the official site I was looking at, so it is possible it was.
Let's see. We just went into our doc file. We're already there. We could do something like. Let's see. Do you have a preference of curl or wget for these types of things?
I sat the CCAD exam a couple of weeks ago.
Did yes.
And I got really friendly with wget.
Okay.
Mostly because all of the reference examples I was learning from were all using wget.
Okay, that's a good reason as any. So wget that file and remove any existing Go install and package that.
So extract it, and then there'll be another command afterwards, I would guess.
Now this is problematic in the Codespace. Hold on. Oh yeah. This is problematic in kind of the Codespace world because we need to do something like this here, down below. So we need to env path equals path.
Well, you can just append it to that line above, can't you?
Exactly what I was just about to do. Just do something like that. There we go.
Is that right?
I believe so, because we've just got the colon in between.
Right, okay, yeah.
Soon find out if not.
Yeah.
The other thing I would have liked to have done is something like arg go version equals. And if we just do something like take that out. And do go version like that.
Yeah.
Just a bit nicer longer term as we inevitably go for newer versions of things. Okay. That looks like a thing.
Well, let's try it. So one of the things I love, I'm using Codespaces with VS Code, and I did a fetch to get the latest from that repository, and it gives me a pop-up that says, "We noticed changes to your dev container. Would you like to rebuild and rerun?"
Yeah. Interestingly, it didn't do the same pop-up changing the Docker file.
Oh, okay. Because the other thing we need to change actually then is to add the Go extensions to VS Code into the dev container.
That is true, but I'm rebuilding.
And so am I. I'm rebuilding from the previous change, so.
Great, cool. So we're basically gonna spend this stream just watching containers getting built and rebuilt, is what I'm hearing. Good.
Yeah, there's in the dev container file in the reference repo. There's some settings that can be set and extension, the golang.go extension.
So if we jump down, sorry, in the dev container. These run args here, I guess.
I guess we just need to make sure those are the same.
Settings then as well. Well, see, the problem with kind of blindly copying some of this is like this go path. That might be dependent on the fact that it's using that underlying Docker image from the VS Code team. Whereas we've installed our Go path in user local Go, which I think is the default. So some of that we might not actually want to change. And we're back. Currently running in recovery mode due to a container error. Yay! Errors. Love errors. Don't love errors.
I'm going to do a rebuild container on there for mine.
Right. Run.
Command failed. I'll grab that command from the repo, and I will just try it in my WSL just to make sure it's doing what we expect it to do.
I'm just looking at it now and thinking about the I haven't got an ampersand here.
What should we do? Let's try
that might have caused a challenge.
Looks okay.
I think there might need to be a double ampersand before the wget. Trying to remember what was on the line.
Oh yeah, there will be. Yeah.
Which is what I've just updated. I'm trying that now. I think that might have been it.
Yeah, because as a standalone command, I've just tried it in my WSL and it works fine.
Yeah, it's because it's chaining onto the other commands, isn't it? So.
Yeah. Although I did get all sorts of cannot open file and directory.
Super.
I think I needed to sudo that one. But you can do that in a container, can you? In the dev container.
I mean, by default, anyway, when it's in initializing, I think it would be doing all of that in the context of what it would need anyway.
Yeah.
Because typically with those dev container JSONs, you have like a user context that you want to run under that you specify, I think, in the dev container from memory. Or it might be in the doc file. Definitely one of those files anyway. Saying container built, I think generally if there's an issue, it does pop up somewhere along the way to say it had an issue. And it's in recovery mode.
Yeah.
So far that's looking potentially that's looking good. There we go.
Yeah.
Wow, something worked for us first. Kind of first.
Well, let's
call it first.
Let's try and manually just try and build the projects then in that case.
Try and build the project.
So let's go here into source and build the Go.
Yeah.
And then build the .NET.
It was players decision state.
I don't remember.
Tell me.
One of them.
Let's try it. 50-50. Yes, got it right. Okay, let's see. Go run.
Build. Yeah, I'll go build or one of those.
Now, actually, a fun discussion here. Actually, whilst we're waiting for this to build, notice how it's downloading all of these packages here.
Mm-hmm.
And notice how if I jump over to security and dependable, this is a public repo, so we might not see everything that I wanted to see to show this actually. What I was gonna show. Yeah, apparently we don't have any alerts. There is something to be considered. So think of different package managers like NuGet, for example, or npm is a good one as well. npm has like the package lock file. So you have your package JSON, you have your package lock JSON. And your package JSON contains like your direct dependencies, whereas the package lock file contains indirect dependencies. The challenge you have with something like Golang is when we look at those dependencies that we have for something like, let's see, player decisions in the Go mod file. By default, typically, it doesn't always have those indirect ones there.
Mm-hmm.
I think at build time that gets populated, so it may not necessarily have those kind of transitive dependencies in the file typically. So what you've got to do is use, you may have heard of it, the dependency graph.
Okay, yep.
And that's something you can do like using a GitHub action. Populate that and then run that during a build. It'll scan your repo and then that will give you additional alerts then for those transitive dependencies. Because by default, for certain package managers where it doesn't have that transitive information, it doesn't know that it's there, kind of thing. But we had a really interesting discussion on this, actually, because then there's the argument, well, hold on, if you can't control the transitive dependencies, do you care or should you care? You know, it's a bit like a philosophical discussion at that point, isn't it? And, you know, I can imagine different organizations having different opinions on that.
I think you at least need to know about them.
And that's where I certainly landed on it, is you might not, you know, have the ability to address it, or maybe you do. Maybe you want to contribute upstream to whatever dependency that is still having issues, right? So, I mean,
log4j is the canonical example of that.
Exactly.
You want to know, and there's been a lot of talk in the last week or so, and there was some stuff coming out of the US around kind of software bill of materials.
Yes.
And about them being requirements for, certainly for government work.
Makes sense. Does make sense.
Yeah, and that's part of that process, isn't it? It's about, unless you know what's in your code, you don't know what vulnerability you've got. And you may not be able to do anything about them. You might be waiting on a downstream dependency, but at the very least, you should know that you do have something you can mitigate against.
Yeah, exactly. So there we go. We've got a code space with .NET, with Dapr, with Golang, and with the Azure CLI on it.
Did you commit that change, that last change?
That
would explain why my laptop doesn't have.
Yes.
That would explain a lot.
With the commit changes committed, because I knew you were going to ask that question.
Yes.
There's definitely not timestamps against commits either, so you definitely can't see that I did it. Like,
the finger of blame is very well and truly pointed. So do you want to just try quickly the .NET one just to make sure that's building as well? Just do a .NET build on them.
Yeah. Player state. Build. So restored that. Good. Yep, some warnings, but all okay. And then spacebar world events engine .NET build. Yeah, all good.
Boom, nice and quick as well.
Yeah. Good.
Okay, so that's good. So just to reiterate, the important part about this is that now when you need to do something to this project and I need to do something to this project, we can get the repo, we can get our own instance of the code space based on the same things, the same dependencies, and we know now that we're working with the same versions of everything.
Yep.
We've got the same tooling installed, we've got the same extensions installed, and then there's none of that. I've got this, what have you got?
It works on my machine.
Yeah.
But let's come back to a point that I think we started earlier and then went off on a tangent. Surprising knowing us, really.
Never do that.
I know. Secrets and connecting to the different components. Of course, we can't commit the YAML files to the repository because that would be a bad practice. We're going to be exposing secrets to the world. So bad.
Yep.
You mentioned about potentially using Dapr secrets for that, I believe.
Well, there's either Dapr secrets or there's the Codespace secrets. I'm wondering whether we can use those because Codespaces have their own secrets as well, don't they?
They do. So what are you?
I don't know. To be honest, I was I was hoping inspiration was going to strike whilst.
Because I thought you meant the secret store capabilities of Dapr is what you were planning to use.
Yeah. So the problem with that is you've still got to have those built inside the container.
There's the initial, indeed. It's the chicken and egg, isn't it?
So, I mean, the other way you could do it would be to have it in Key Vault. We set up a Key Vault in Azure.
Is there a secret store component for... No, there wouldn't be one for Codespaces. That makes so much sense. Because I think the Codespace secrets... I'll be honest, actually, I've never really used secrets for Codespaces, actually. It's personal access token to cloud services, service principals, subscription identifiers. Yeah, secret names can only contain alphanumerics or underscores. So yeah, you add a secret through the normal route. And then how do you consume it in the Codespace is my... Ah! So it's just an environment variable. A secret is exported as an environment variable into the user's terminal session.
Which might work.
Can we pull out an environment variable directly into a YAML file for Dapr?
So,
can you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah. You don't necessarily need to put it into the Dapr file. You just need it to be available when. Wow. So.
The reason I say can we put it directly in a Dapr file, a bit like as you will have seen when you did your recent Kubernetes exams, like in the config maps, for example, being able to pull straight from an environment variable. If we could do that,
yeah,
then that would be really, really slick because it's going to be auto-injected.
I don't know. So what in the Dapr secret stuff? You have the Dapr secrets page up there. What were the secret stores that were available? No, the Dapr secrets ones.
Oh, Dapr. Sorry.
So there's local environment
variables. Ooh.
Now the weird thing here is that we'd be using a different secret store on locally on the Codespaces than we would when we deployed it, but because it's Dapr, it should take care of that. We basically got that abstraction.
Yeah, that wouldn't matter. I'm up for giving that a go.
Yeah, let's try that. So what we want to see if we can do is, can we get one of them wrote to the storage account, didn't it? Which one was it?
Yep. Did you want to take over at this point, maybe?
I can, although. So let's pick. Let's have a look which one. So we want the one that was writing out to. Are you gonna share me up?
Yes. I don't know why my
there we go.
Literally dropped, but
making sure I know which one it is. So that's the long-winded, wordy one. That's the one that's got the player state service in. So player state is probably the one we want, isn't it? I think. So that's where's my controller. That's going to write out player state controller that post to that player state service. Right. Okay. And then the Dapr state service is going to use a state store called player state. And what we want to be able to do is to write out to the storage account that's in Azure. Do we want to do that, or do we want to go local? I guess we want to do that storage account in Azure, don't we?
Do it to yeah, exactly. If we're running in that environment.
So we need to have a components folder in there, don't we? So where should we have our components folder?
Let's see.
Does that want to be part of the player state? It probably does, doesn't it?
I think it wants to be a subfolder of the relevant service.
Let me just get
because we are gonna
state store, secret store, secret store components. So I've got the definition, and then we wanted supported secret stores, local environment variables. So does that put all locally? Right. It looks like it does, doesn't it?
It does look like it, yeah, indeed.
So let's just see if we can get that, because the first thing we want is then that component. So I'm going to create a folder in there called, we've got an IAC folder. Let's have a component, shall we?
Yep.
Components or Dapr components?
It's just components, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether or not that has any context inside the, like, you don't want to take a name of a folder within it.
Yeah, because I suppose we can be explicit in the path when we use Dapr, can't we?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So then we're going to have a new file. It's going to be secret store .yaml, isn't it? And then we're going to grab that. So we can keep that name there. Then we're going to have another one, which is going to be our player state store .yaml, and that's going to be one of these here, which I can find now. Blob store. We're doing table storage, aren't we? If I remember rightly.
I think so.
In fact, we can see it from the. Yep. So this is an interesting part actually, because this is where you can see when we deploy this stuff using Bicep, it's wrapping the Dapr component state into the Bicep format. So if I now paste this in, which is the same, you can see it's very similar syntax to what we've had before. So that name needs to be player store, I think it is. So my services, Dapr player state. Sure we've got that right. I'm going to rename that just so it's called player state, and then we'll rename that so we know where it's coming from. With that. Okay, so we know Cosmos DB mode. No, we don't want that. We know the table name, that's largely static. So do we want to put these into environment variables?
I think it makes sense, doesn't it? Account name, is that sensitive?
Well, I would say account name and table name aren't, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is just the key, isn't it?
So I'm going to go and grab those off screen a minute.
Nice.
Just so I don't leak the credential, and then I'll send you over the credential, because I think you'll need to add the secret.
And while you're doing that, let me jump back on, show my screen. What I was talking about a bit earlier with the Golang dependencies, etc., is this dependency submission API. So this is the type of workflow I was thinking here. So you'd have a GitHub action workflow. You check out the repository, you set up Go on the runner, and then what you do is you run this Go dependency submission action. So what it does is it basically sends up the dependency list that you've got in the Go mod file. Then you also define the path of the build target, because then it collects all dependencies at build time then as well, I believe. And then is able to, I think is using the dependency graph in the background, able to then add on additional dependencies that it may not have picked up just on that kind of initial layer there. But I'm surprised that we're not getting any alerts here whatsoever.
Yeah. I'm going to drop in our private chat the key for this.
Cool.
Because you'll need to add that to a GitHub secret.
I will.
You want to do that while you're there?
Let me stop sharing my screen. Exactly. There we go. If you want to share it now. Oh, you have. Good. Is there a certain name I gotta?
I think we'll just, because if from memory you put it into a Codespaces secret, and then we reference it by. You have the doc open for the GitHub, the Codespace secret.
No, but I mean for the.
Oh, so it's going to be player state storage account key.
Have you got that?
Whatever you call it, just paste it back into the chat. Now, how do I work with secrets on this?
Have we got multiple storages for player states? Is it worth us being explicit that it's storage account table key?
I say let's get it working and then worry about those, because we haven't really. We've just got one player state because it's the environment variable for that component.
Okay.
Or is it? No, hang on, that's interesting. It's actually the storage account for the game as a whole, regardless of which thing.
That's fine. Let me paste this back. That is what it's called.
How do I work with these secrets? Secret stores. Environment. How to reference secrets in Dapr components. That's what I want. Right, okay. So that's going to be our so I'm going to need name, key,
Is this the point where you're happy to be back on screen?
Yeah, it could be. There's nothing secret on there at the moment. So I've literally from this page, which is all about how you consume secrets.
Yeah.
So I'm taking this secret key ref, and I'm taking the auth, which is the secret store name, and then I'm just sticking them in along with the secret that you've just given me, which is this player state storage account key, which is the key, and then I need to know what the name would be. Oh, it should be account. Oh no, I don't know what that would be. So it extracts.
The name will be whatever we call the secret store in the other file. So if you look at that's it. The nvar-secret-store.
But that's the state. That's the secret store. That's this thing here, by the looks of it. So I don't know what that name would be, unless it's the same as the.
Oh yeah, it would just. Oh, I see what you're saying. Sorry, I'm with you now.
See, there's an implication here. If I go back to this doc, that referencing a Kubernetes secret. So you would have a secret component, a Dapr component that would reference a Kubernetes secret that would reference. So it would have a key within it. But there's also
a note somewhere where it says something like you've got to name them the same thing or something.
Yeah, and that's what I think it says. On the other hand, the secret is a string case applies when there's not a key embedded in a secret. Rather, the secret is just a string.
Therefore, the secret and the name will be identical.
Right. Okay. So let's try that then, shall we? Then we've got to remember how to set up Dapr for this. So if we were to change that to there, so you've added it to the container.
So the code spaces, you mean?
To the code space.
Yeah.
So off screen, do you just want to see if you can reference it in the terminal?
Well, I think you need to do a rebuild first. Oh, your code spaces. Whoa! I got a pop-up. Your code space secrets have changed. Reload to apply. Okay.
Oh, nice. I didn't see a pop-up.
My secrets are better than yours. So what was it again? It was... bear with me whilst I just remember the name. Copy that.
Yeah, I haven't had the same pop-up, which is interesting.
I can confirm I have the secrets in my code space.
Do you? Right, I'm going to try and rebuild. If I commit this...
Yep. I should hopefully get a pop-up to say... But if not, I can rebuild manually anyway. Committed?
Should be.
Interestingly, I didn't get a pop-up, so...
I'm going to do a rebuild container on mine.
As am I. Oh, that was quick. Image found, container built, build a container.
Come on, just this once. And then I think, from memory, we need to then do a Dapr. I've got to remember the command line for this now. Getting started with Dapr.
Just installing the Dapr bits, the Go bits.
Interestingly, this article on Microsoft Learn, well, it's quite a useful reference for getting started. The one that I thought was quite interesting down here was build a multi-container Dapr application, which I think is what we're going to need to do to debug our problem.
And hopefully uses Visual Studio 2022.
Yeah. Well, we'll figure that out with that. That's a futurist problem.
Got it. Damn, futurist. Right, so I've got a working environment now. So what do I need to do? I need to try a Dapr.
How do I
run on?
So it's
the player state we were using.
Yeah. I'm not I need to know what the command is. So Dapr help. Dapr run help. I wanted. Never mind.
Hang on, you've still got the screen at Valve on yours. Said.
It is Dapr run. Yeah, so Dapr run. So cd source, cd spacebar, player, date. Right, so it will be Dapr run minus. Oh, let's go look what the component path is. There is a thing where you can specify where your stuff is running.
I think it is just dash components, dash path.
Dash components or dash D. So Dapr run app ID. I don't really need to do that, but ID is player state -D / components.
Dapr _ components.
It's just that, isn't it? I think.
No, Dapr _ components.
Yeah. Like that, and then .NET run.
Yep.
Did we get everything running? So if I now open that in a browser, I need another terminal for that, don't I? I then need to do a wget port 5000. Oh no, it would be available.
This is what, an API, so we could just go to the. That was just localhost. If you go to the ports tab,
ports tab,
just above where you were in the terminal.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, got you.
But interestingly, it's not giving a public address for you there. Only local addresses. Oh, this is your local VS Code, isn't it? That's why. Sorry. Carry on. You're doing great.
So
it's because I've been working in the browser and
yeah, so you've got forwarding on there. Yeah,
exactly.
So which one do I want? Is it the 5000 or is it? It'll be one of these Dapr addresses, won't it?
Try 5000.
Let's just try.
This is where we really need to document the standards. I think that is our next thing.
So did we put a hello on this one? I can't remember. Player state. So if I do I'll bring this down now. ID = 1 2 3 4. No, that's not returning anything. Oh, it's got a full path. In fact, we have documented because we've got the tests. There's a HTTP test thing that's in there. And what we need is API / player state ? Right, and I'm getting a null back.
Okay.
Which is a good sign. So in theory, I ought to be able to do. Let's just test that. Just make sure we do that one.
Oh yeah, of course it'd be null because there's nothing in the. It's a new storage account.
Ah, we haven't installed. We need to install the REST client extension.
Ah. What? If you go to your extensions and just install it manually for now.
Interestingly, there was another one I saw the other day. REST books. Have you seen this?
No.
So this is a Jupyter Notebook style HTTP request.
Okay, so you have like almost an interactive experiment type.
Yeah, running commentary on them.
Nice. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Oh, and that's very well rated as well, actually, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it was part of the VS Code team, if I remember rightly. So let's just stick that on localhost 5000, and then we can try and do the post from there as well. Oh,
Don't forget HTTP.
Yeah. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. No. Right. And then, which is it's a good sign. We do a post. Get rid of some of that so I can see what I'm doing. Let's go and grab that big monster thing that we had there. Make sure I've got everything. Just player state, no ID at the end. Like that.
Yep.
Player updated. That's a good sign. This is quite exciting. Let me go and have a look in my storage account. And I'll bring it up now.
Come on, it's too easy. Something's got to go wrong. It's too easy. No. Oh my word, that was very impressive.
First time. We've done tons.
Yeah, I'm actually blown away.
I'm walking away now. We're not going to top that tonight. That's great.
I'm really impressed with that, actually.
I'm going to commit that so you've got the reference examples for it.
And what I was actually doing in the background whilst you were working on all that as well, mate, is I was kind of thinking on the security angle, hold on, if we got a potential issue here that anyone could create a code space and then start using their secrets, you know, is there potentially a bad angle here? So when you have access to GitHub Codespaces, you'll see a Codespaces tab, blah, 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 blah. You'll have access to GitHub Codespaces under the following conditions. Either all of these are true, to a member or outside collaborator of an organization that has enabled Codespaces, blah, blah, blah. So basically you're going to have access to Codespaces, or you are participating in the beta of Codespaces for individual users. So either you're part of my organization because I pay for Codespaces and Cloud with Chris, or you as an individual user have Codespaces access.
Yep.
And then either you own the repository for which you want to create a code space, or it is owned by an organization of which you are either a member or an outside collaborator.
So in order to because I've been added as a, mind you, but you have to be invited as an outside collaborator, though, don't you?
Exactly. Yeah. The organization owner has allowed you to create code space.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm impressed. I am impressed. That's going to make development with Dapr a lot easier moving forward, actually.
Yeah.
A ton easier.
Means we're in control of everything as well, so.
Indeed. I guess the one thing... I'm just thinking of how you kind of future-proof things like this as well. So, maybe we need to make a GitHub issue for ourselves just to create any other Codespaces secrets, like next time.
Yep.
Do that at the very beginning.
Yep. Do you want to take over and do the issue stuff now?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I can do that. The other thing, just if I say it while I'm thinking out loud here, is if that storage account key changes for whatever reason, being able to automatically update the Codespace secret would be very nice. And I can imagine, I'm going to say it as I'm thinking it, I can imagine we can probably do that using the Terraform provider.
Ooh, I've not seen the GitHub one.
Yeah. Repository secrets.
So action secrets in there. There's no code space.
Interestingly, no code space secrets.
Yeah.
That might be a contribution.
Yeah. I'm sure it's coming.
Yeah, because all the other types of secrets are there. You've got actions, you've got dependabot. But that would be the ideal state anyway, wouldn't it? Is something like that. So let's jump back to the issues. And this will be what?
So we've got the secrets for the other components. So we've got to create the components and the secrets for the other services. I don't think there will be any actually. I think that player state storage account key is fine.
Then we probably want to rename it, I would say.
Yeah.
But we'll leave it as is anyway. So add Codespaces secrets for other services as appropriate. YAML files, secret stores, other services. Oh. So does that help us with the problem we were having last time, kind of coming back full circle? So we wanted to get to a state where we could easily reproduce the issues we were having. I think we're in a place where we could get to that now.
I think that's the next step, is to how can we run at least 2 of our services at the same time?
Yep, indeed.
Because I think there's a challenge around the Dapr ports that are needed. I think we have to be explicit about specifying the Dapr ports that things operate on.
Yeah.
And then I think there's worth looking at the launch and the task.jsons for VS Code so that we can actually just kick those up and run those as debug properly.
But they may even be, because we didn't look at that yet in that repository, the VS Code dev containers one. Plans, but there may even be some stuff already in the repos up there. Dapr.vs Code. There are some launch JSONs. That's cool. Tasks.
Yeah, it's whether or not they handle multiple things at the same time.
They don't have Dapr commands in those, unfortunately. But again, that's something we can add there. We can figure that out. So,
I mean, at the very worst case, the way that you do it is you open up in your code space, split terminals.
Yep.
And you just run 2 terminals at the same time.
Exactly. Not the end of the world. Wow. That was productive. Yeah. That was good. Well, future us have to live up to some expectations there.
Yeah, yes. Well, we've still got to fix this problem yet. Bear in mind, it's been 3 sessions now. We haven't fixed the problem. So
I don't know what you mean. There is no problem.
We're having fun, though.
Exactly, and that's, again, the point of this, right? So, no, good. We will... I'm conscious this was the last one that was kind of scheduled on YouTube and on the website as well, so I'm sure we will start smashing diaries together and figuring out availability and things. So,
absolutely.
We will be posting all of those very soon. But until then, thank you for listening in and tuning in. And Matt, pleasure as always.
As usual, yeah.
Have a wonderful weekend. And we'll see you all very, very soon.